Hello, everyone, and welcome to Sports Talk in the Burgh. I'm your host, Nate Kingston, and as per usual, I'm with my fellow panelist, the Pittsburgh Steelers sports fan from Maryland, Amir Keasley, and our Premier League soccer fanatic, Casey Irwine. We're going to have a great show for you, so let's get right into it. So to start it off, the Pittsburgh Steelers finished off Week 1 against the Atlanta Falcons with a win. Even with this win, there are still many questions that need to be answered. On the offense, that is. So, what is your opinion on the Steelers' offense after Week 1, Amir?
After Week 1, I was a little bit upset, and my expectations were not met at all. I feel like the offense, they were able to get drives going, but they weren't able to finish. So we need to execute. They need to execute on offense and get in the end zone. Though field goals are good, but we need the touchdowns.
No, I completely agree with you. You cannot win a game, at least every game, with your leading scorer being your kicker. And that's my take on that.
Yeah, here's the thing, though. I agree with you guys. Obviously, touchdowns, they have to happen at some point. But it's Week 1 here. There's a lot of new stuff going on. I'm going to tell you a little bit about the AFC North quarterbacks here in Week 1. Justin Fields, 91.9 passer rating. You look below. Lamar, 90.8 passer rating. Burrow, 86 passer rating. Deshaun Watson, $230 million guaranteed contract. So you look at all that, and you see, with a new Justin Fields in this offense, you have a different type of O-line, rookie center. Fautano's going to be in there, but he's not in there yet. And you have Sayamalu's out. So it's a little shaky there. And, of course, injury with Roman Wilson. So lack of depth on the wide receiver side. And Jaylen Warren, he only had 2 rushing attempts in the entire game. So he's a little hurt. So this offense isn't even at full strength yet. And, obviously, they're also still getting used to the Arthur Smith playbook. So I think while, yes, the execution, especially in the red zone and getting to the red zone, needs to be there, I think that it's heading in the right direction. I think it's the most promising offense so far since Big Ben hurt his elbow years ago.
I can agree 100% with you, Casey. But the biggest thing that I feel like the Steelers, they need to get control of is, once again, like I said earlier, just the execution. I feel like Arthur Smith has been putting in good plays. And hear me out. A lot of the plays I saw on Sunday, I liked what I saw. And I feel like if they can get that going, be more creative, I feel like they are going to set themselves up for a good season this year.
No, I agree. I completely agree with you on that one. Plus, I love the Arthur Smith concept of what he's done in Tennessee and some stuff he's done in Atlanta. Obviously, head coaching is not his thing. I think he should stay as a coordinator. But I definitely agree with you guys. I want to see what Justin Fields does, especially next week, since he may or may not have the start. I know Tomlin said he has the start, but there's always that thing that Russell Wilson could come back in.
Yeah.
Anyway, continuing on with the Steelers, let's move over to the other side of the ball with the defense, specifically the best player on the Steelers defense, TJ Watt. So, does TJ Watt fully dictate the Steelers' success, Casey?
All right, you can look at the facts here. A popular stat. Steelers are 1-10 without TJ Watt during his career. On Sunday, he was the clear game record of this game. And when you think of the Steelers and their success, you think of TJ Watt. Now, does he fully dictate the Steelers' success, though? Is that the question? Yes. I don't think so. No, I don't think that's the answer anymore. I don't think it's a fully dictate. You start at the defensive side of the ball. They have made additions where they're there to support T.J. Watt, and even without him, I think they can succeed now. You've got Patrick Queen. Didn't have a great game on Sunday, but he will obviously be an impact player. Cam Hayward, Alex Highsmith, Keanu Benton, Ogunjobi, they're going to be there to hold up that defensive line. The secondary was much better than a lot of us thought it would be. JPJ had Drake London on his island. Deshaun Elliott and Minka at safety were really good. And Dante Jackson, the new addition from the Deontay Johnson trade, he was really good besides one messed up penalty there that stopped a TJ Watt strip sack. But I think, so overall, I think this defense now with how it's built, it's the most paid defense in the NFL, I think it can survive without TJ Watt, so I don't think he fully dictates it.
And I have to disagree with you here. History shows that we cannot win without TJ. If you look back to, I believe it was a Ravens game about a few years ago, TJ was not there. We were getting dogged. And I feel like our defense's identity is built upon TJ Watt. So I feel like if there's no TJ Watt, there is no Steelers defense.
I get that.
Exactly. Let's go back to the Bills playoff game. Without him there, or whenever he's hurt, whenever he tore his pec a couple seasons ago, that was even a huge factor.
Did you guys listen to a word I just said?
Yes, I listened to a word you said.
I'm saying that it was just built to survive. I'm saying in the past, yes, He was the answer. He was, if the Steelers succeed or not, it's on TJ Watt. Right now, though, with everything they had, and you look at the offense, too. The offense, of course, was not going to help at all. Now you look at the game on Sunday, a lot more promise there, a lot more impact players there, new play calling. So, no, I don't think it's all on TJ Watt anymore. And so, with all these new additions, I think now he can be elevated to have less pressure on him and really explode like he did against the Falcons.
Okay, I can see that. I can see that, Casey. Especially with the reemergence of all the defensive backs you listed, plus Deontay Jackson almost got a pick six, just got tripped up there at the end. But I think we definitely won that trade with the Panthers. Speaking of, we'll get more trade on that later. But I do want to see what the defense can continue to do, as well as getting that pressure off of TJ. Obviously, you have Nick Herbig, you have Alex Highsmith, and then you have some rookies coming in that are going to be lighting it up this year. Anyway, going on over from Acrisure Stadium to PNC Park, the Pittsburgh Pirates are rounding out their season and have been in the spotlight thanks to their star rookie pitcher, Paul Skeens. So, are the Pirates already wasting their time with Skeens? Amir, what do you have about this?
Nathan, I wouldn't say they're wasting their time just yet. But I will say that the team has wasted Paul Skeens' starts. I can count on my fingers about a good amount of starts that the offense of the Pittsburgh Pirates has sold Paul Skeens. It is terrible. He can throw 7 no-hit innings and still get nowhere, basically. And the fact that he has about a 2.10 ERA through about, 20 starts almost? That's incredible. It's incredible.
Yeah, speaking of what, him beating the record, 143 strikeouts, which is absolutely insane. Since 1900s?
I just think it's a waste of Paul Skeens. I think they're already doing it. I know he's got years left on his contract, but you think about it this way, he's now already playing in meaningless starts, and he's maybe the most dynamic pitcher in the whole league already. He's been pulled from a couple games now already this year where he's throwing a no-hitter, and I get the new day and age of analytics and pitch count and stuff like that, but here's the fact. It sucks.
No,
okay?
I agree. I think they're pulling him way too early.
Something like that is historical, and with a young guy like that, you let him pitch and you let him win the game, okay? You have to look at it, Derek Shelton has to look at it away. He has to look past the analytics. He has to do what's going to win the Pirates games. And sometimes he doesn't do that. He goes too much analytics. Sometimes you have to keep your guy in there and give your team the best chance of winning. Doesn't matter about pitch count or anything like that, because 60% Paul Skeens is going to be better than a 100% Colin Holderman. And we've seen that time and time again of how many times where, not just with Skeens, multiple pitchers where they've pulled them in the 5th or 6th inning, they're having a good outing. Relief comes in, and it's the game away. The game's blown. And it's not just the pitching, okay? It's the hitting as well. They have failed not just Paul Skeens now, but so many players. You look at Ke'Bryan Hayes, okay? He was supposed to be a great hitter. He had a great hitting part of the season last year, but they want him to be more of a power hitter. They want him to be like a 35 home run guy, but he's not that guy. And so to get more of that power hitting, they really have him kind of close up a little bit so he can really get in and pull more on the ball. But on pitches outside now, he's dead. He can't hit the ball.
Exactly. No, and that's shown in all his stats.
And so he has sucked this year as a hitter. Been terrible. Not one good positive thing. And going back to Shelton and all the coaches in general, you look at Shelton, he said in the game this year that they played for a tie in one of the games in the 9th inning. They lost that game. Of course they did. And I know, we talked about Ben Sherrington. He said that Shelton's probably going to have a job next year. I don't agree with that. I think it shows where they stand on how much they care about winning. And of course, how much they care about winning goes back up to the top with the owners. The owners, let's just be honest here, they run it like a slumlord, if we're being honest here. They made $68 million in profit last year, and that's all they really need. And so the reality is they're not only wasting Paul Skeens, they're wasting the fans' time, they're wasting his time, they're wasting the players' time, they're wasting coaches' time, they're wasting our time.
And Casey, I'm going to actually go back to a point you said about pulling him early. I actually kind of agree with pulling him early in some circumstances. We don't want to see Paul Skeens go down the route of Jacob deGrom or Stephen Strasburg. Those guys have notoriously been known to have injuries. Stephen Strasburg basically had his career ended because of a nerve damage into his arm. No one wants to see that happen to Paul Skeens, so I think we should be cautious in a meaningless year, as you can see.
Well, that's because of just coaching fundamentals in general and how the MLB is these days. There's such a crisis with pitching in general and injuries because of how they teach it these days, just because now it's every pitch they're telling them, throw it as hard as you can, get as much spin on the ball as you can. When back in the day, that's not how it used to be. And there was a lot less injuries, and guys would go pitch, close game, whole game. And now they can't do that. And also part of it is, back in the old days, the fellows would go out and they'd play a game of catch, and that'd be every day. These days, that just doesn't happen. And so building that arm strength from the young age doesn't happen. And so that's why the pitch count is a factor and the crisis is there. But with Paul Skeens, I think you just got to let him go.
No, I agree. Anyway, coming up, I will be joined by 2 more panelists, and we will be getting into more NFL debates in our Players of the Week. So stay right here for some more Sports Talk in the Burgh.
Bring it.
Time out, guys. I'm late to dinner. My mom's gonna kill me. Catch you guys later.
Mom wants us home. Okay. Bye, guys.
You guys need a ride?
Sure. Yeah. All right. How about some one-on-one?
I gotta go eat, man. Sorry, I'll see you later.
Before we celebrate the freedom most Americans have, we must fight for the freedom all Americans deserve. Because all lives can't matter until Black lives matter.
When I was your age, I was just like you, fascinated by stars. But now I get to search for life in the universe. And who knows, maybe life is looking for us too.
So we're like aliens to them?
Yeah. Does anyone want to be a scientist now?
I do.
Awesome. We need more girls in STEM.
Maybe we can find aliens.
Hello and welcome back to Sports Talk in the Burgh. Joining with me now are the Cologne connoisseur of the show, Jordan Warwick, and one of our freshman football analysts, Caden Hyde. So let's get right back into it. As I said before, we are staying with the NFL, and with the NFL, there is one burning question after week 1, and that is what is going on with the Cleveland Browns and Deshaun Watson? So the question is, which trade is worse, the Deshaun Watson trade or the Panthers trade to the Bears of how they got Bryce Young? What do you have for this, Jordan?
For me, this is really one of the easiest questions that I've had to answer on this show. This is so easily the Deshaun Watson trade to the Browns for a number of different reasons. For one, it doesn't really surprise me that a team like the Browns are on a list like this of the worst trades. But because, again, they are the Browns, but they gave up on their number 1 overall pick, Baker Mayfield, who's now proven to be a better quarterback than Deshaun Watson. And the pieces that they gave up for Deshaun Watson turned into Kenyon Green, who is a starter for the Texans, John Mechie III, who is a young receiver for them, Christian Harris, who is, again, their starting linebacker who had 100-plus tackles last year. Damian Pierce, for when he was a starter, he had 900 yards his rookie year. Will Anderson, who was a defensive rookie of the year last year.
And don't forget about Tank Dell.
And Tank Dell also, who is one of the best young receivers in the entire league. So this set up the Texans for a future of being contenders. While it set like the Browns are still a good football team, which we can all agree on, but they will not be able to ascend to the highest level of football because they do not have the quarterback play needed to be better than teams such as the Ravens or the Chiefs or any team like that. So for me, it's pretty easy with the positions of both of the teams involved in the trade to see that the Browns Deshaun Watson trade was worse.
And I agree with Jordan. I think that the Browns Deshaun Watson trade is the worst trade in NFL history by far, not only because of all the assets that were given up, like you said, Kenyon Green, John Mechie, who'd be a starter on about 20 other different teams, But the fact that within that trade was the guarantee that Deshaun Watson was going to become the highest paid quarterback in the NFL.
Which is still so bonkers to me that they would guarantee that much money to a guy that had a year off from football due to off-field problems. We'll just call it that. Off-field problems. Speaking of, there's some more that are there right now, which that's even another question for another day. But I still agree with you guys on this with Deshaun Watson. It is definitely the worst trade here.
Yeah, now I'm not saying that the Bryce Young and Chicago Bears trade also isn't bad, but I feel like the reason that the Browns made this Deshaun Watson trade was the Rams, the way they built their team, the way giving up the future for the now. And this is an example of that just not working. I mean, you can give up 3 first-round picks and a couple of mid-round selections for a player and it'll work out. This is definitely not one of those cases. Whereas for the Bryce Young trade, it feels like something that made sense. Carolina needed a quarterback. They had a decent roster around the quarterback position, and so they went up and they got who they thought was going to be the guy, and just turns out he wasn't. And I mean, it still remains to be seen. He's played not even 20 games in his NFL career, but as of right now, it's looking like they made the wrong decision.
Oh yeah, Bryce Young, I mean, it may be the team around him, it may be the coordinators, maybe the coaches, but I still think the Bears just won that trade, definitely with getting Caleb Williams, getting Rome Odunze, and all the other weapons they got with wide receivers from other teams. So I definitely agree with both you guys that both the trades are kind of.
And now I will say the Bryce Young trade has the potential to be worse than this, but we just don't know how the players that were picked, like Caleb Williams, are really going to perform in their career so far. So it has the potential to be worse than the Deshaun Watson trade, but as of right now, the Deshaun Watson trade is the worst trade in NFL history, in my opinion.
Wrap it up, guys.
Yes. All right, moving on, going from the worst, let's go to the best. This week, there was very impressive performances by many players, although that is just what it is this week. So, for your player for this week, what do we have, Caden? Who's your best player this week?
This week, I have the young guy, well, one of the many young guys out of Green Bay, Jaden Reed. He had 4 receptions, a couple of rushes in there too, 171 total yards, a touchdown, including a 70-yarder. He just showed off an elusiveness, that speed that someone like a young quarterback like Jordan Love needs in a modern offense. And I mentioned one of the young guys on this team. The Packers have 4 young wide receivers: Christian Watson, Dontavion Wicks, Romeo Doubs, and Jaden Reed. And last year, I don't think a single one of them topped 1,000 yards. They need that one guy to really break out and be that #1 target for Jordan Love going forward. And I think after this game, whenever Jordan Love gets back, he's going to start looking towards Jaden Reed a little bit more.
Yeah, I completely understand the Jaden Reed pick, because he was actually in my consideration for this pick. But I'm going to go with the guy who was the best running back in Week 1, and that is Saquon Barkley. Going into this year, a lot of people thought like Jalen Hurts would be taking away some of the productivity that Saquon offers. But as we've seen in Week 1, that did not happen. This man came into Brazil and absolutely dominated. 24 carries, 109 yards, 2 touchdowns on the ground, and then he had another touchdown through the air. He averaged 4.5 yards a carry. So if you give this man the ball twice, he's most likely going to get a first down, or he's going to be very close to it. So I think to me, there was no one better than Saquon. He proved while he's still going to be a top 5 back in this league.
Oh, no, I don't agree with any of your guys' picks. I mean, it's going to be hard for Jalen Reed, especially with Love out, and you have, Will Levis coming? Not Will Levis. Malik Willis. Yes, the other quarterback that they took from Tennessee. It's going to be really hard for them. And then Saquon, I think the Giants are very much regretting that. But for my pick, yes, I have a pick for this. I have Baker Mayfield. He's going to bake. Baker is going to bake, guys. First off, this guy threw for 24 for 30, destroyed that Commanders defense. And, of course, you see Mike Evans, 11th year in the league, is still proving why he's the most consistent wide receiver. He matched up with Chris Godwin multiple times, ended up being the leading scorer and for yards there. But Baker threw for 289 yards, 4 touchdowns, and he pretty much hit everybody. He even hit the rookie as well right there for that touchdown, his first NFL touchdown. Gotta love that one. But I think it's just gonna be Baker. He's showing why that he is the quarterback for the Buccaneers. He's proving why that the Cleveland Browns should have never got rid of this guy. And I think I really bought into the hype in that one Rams game that he came in 2 days before and destroyed. I think it was with the Raiders that game. Yeah, the Raiders. Oh, man. I am fully on the Baker train. I think I'm in the bakery. I'm so ready for it, guys.
And to think, going back to that same the deal with the Bryce Young and Deshaun Watson, Carolina had him too. And they cut him not even a whole season in. They just didn't really give him a chance. His offensive line was Swiss cheese. And he goes over to Tampa Bay, where he has decent weapons, a decent offensive line, a good supporting defense, and who knows? Like you said, Baker baked. It's almost like you put a good supporting cast around a good
exactly.
quarterback.
And plus,
good things happen.
he's even said this is the only team where he's really felt like home, like he actually belonged on this team. And I can't agree with him. So, yeah, I think that's how it's going to be this season. Anyway, continuing with quarterbacks in today's show, Jets quarterback Aaron Rodgers actually played a whole game, not just 4 snaps, without injury. But unfortunately, they still lost to the 49ers on Monday Night Football. So, are the Jets still destined to fail, even with Aaron Rodgers? Jordan, what do we have for this?
I wouldn't necessarily say they're destined to fail, but they are not going to be the Super Bowl contenders I think people thought they were when they first traded for Aaron Rodgers. They won 7 games last year, had a very good defense, and had the pieces offensively to be very good. But this game with the 49ers showed to me that they just cannot compete with the big dogs of the NFL. Rodgers is going to turn 41 this year. In the last 4 seasons he played, he threw the 2nd most interceptions that he's ever thrown in his entire career. And he even threw an interception during this game, which if you've been watching Aaron Rodgers, you know it's rare for him to throw picks. So I think there's just something off about him, something changed about Rodgers, and I don't think, especially if you combine it with the fact that they are in a division with the Bills and the Dolphins, who those are teams I just think are superior than the Jets. I think the Jets can have a very good season, but they are not going to have a top echelon season.
Albeit, even though Aaron Rodgers, he did not have his best game. He didn't do what we're accustomed to Aaron Rodgers to do. You have to cut the man a little bit of slack. I mean, he's coming off one of the most major injuries you can have as a sports player, and it's been 610 days since the guy last threw a football pass. And I just feel like if 160-something yards and a touchdown interception, the interception was tipped, by the way. It was tipped out and then caught off a bounce. I feel like if that is the rust game, if that's the game to get Aaron Rodgers back into it, I think this Jets team has real promise. However, as like you said, dealing with the 49ers, that's a team you're probably going to have to go through if you make it out of the AFC, let alone the Chiefs, the Ravens, maybe even the Lions. I feel like this Jets team is the definition of 10-7 divisional round exit as its peak.
10-7 or 9-8, we'll see what Aaron Rodgers and the Jets can do. Coming up, we will have Caden's breakdown of his NFL sleeper team's tier list right after this.
If you love them enough to suck the snot out of their nose at 4 a.m., then surely you'll check NHTSA.gov/the right seat to make sure they're in the right car seat.
Today, we face an unprecedented crisis. Tens of millions of refugees have been forced from their homes. But you can make a difference. Turn disruption and despair to hope and opportunity. Even small amounts make a big difference. Provide shelter, support, or jobs in your community. The more we understand, the greater sense of belonging we create. Act now. Visit supportcrisisrelief.org.
I don't want to talk about it.
I don't want to talk about it.
Families don't have to talk about everything, but they should talk about how to plan for an emergency. Get tips and resources to make your family's emergency plan.
Hello and welcome back to Sports Talk in the Burgh. This year we have many teams that had a great week 1 and have very good potential in the NFL. So, Caden, what are the teams that we need to pay attention to this year as sleepers?
All right, well, thank you, Mr. Kingston. I have 5 teams lined up here for us today. And starting off as a team that a lot of people really counted out after the preseason due to an injury at the game's most important position. Number 5, I have the Minnesota Vikings as one of the league's biggest sleeper teams. I mean, they have the best wide receiver in the game, and that's more than literally 31 other teams can say. They have a pretty good number 2 in Jordan Addison. They have the weapons on offense. Their pass rush looked pretty decent. I mean, they got rid of Daniil Hunter, which is always going to sting no matter what your team is. But Andrew Van Ginkel gets out there, wrecks the game up a little bit. You got Jonathan Grenard rushing the other side, who had 7 sacks last year as a member of the Texans. Doesn't really get talked about a whole lot. That and the fact that Sam Darnold looked like a top
20 quarterback last week, which is, I think, is more than any Vikings fan really asked for.
Listen, the Vikings are going to probably be a decent team. But, again, quarterback position matters so much these days. Quarterback play matters so much. A sleeper team, when I don't see this team winning more than 6 or 7 games with Sam Darnold at the helm. He had a good game last week, but just because you have a good game against a bad team don't mean you're going to continue to have good games. I'm not very confident in Sam Darnold. He's not really shown in his NFL career that he is a top-tier quarterback or even a mid-tier quarterback. So I'm not rocking with that one, Kay. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, I don't know about that one, Caden, especially. I just don't trust Sam Darnold at all. I want to see what he does against an actual defense and not what they call the New York Giants defense.
All right,
what do we have next?
Coming up next at number 4, we have what some might consider my hottest take, and I believe might be my hottest take. At number 4, I have the Washington Commanders as a team that could really surprise someone this year. I mean, they have Jaden Daniels. He looked like a good quarterback. He
looked like a good runner.
Yeah,
okay?
His only 2 touchdowns were rushing touchdowns.
He still showed that
doesn't mean he's not a good quarterback. Good quarterbacks can run the ball.
He still showed that he has problem, like not just bailing out of the pocket as soon as he sees a bit of trouble. He did that so much in that game, and he has a lot of issues that he still needs to work on to show that he's a good quarterback. He's a good rushing quarterback. He's phenomenal right now. He's not a good quarterback. Let's get that straight. But continue.
Yeah. What's number 3?
All right, number 3 coming up next is I have a team that made the playoffs 2 years ago, was not quite as lucky last year. At number 3, I have the Jacksonville Jaguars as a team that I really think could shock some people.
Okay, I can see that one a little bit. It'll have to come down to what type of Trevor Lawrence we see. If we see end of the season of last year Trevor Lawrence, it's going to be a long season. If we see what we saw in the first 8 weeks, maybe I can get on your train here. Plus, we have to make sure that ETN actually doesn't fumble the ball every game and that these wide receivers can actually get some separation.
Yeah, and their defense actually looks surprisingly decent, especially against such a potent offensive attack of Miami. I mean, Tyreek Hill did have an 80-yard touchdown, but it's Tyreek Hill. He's one of the top 5 players in the league. That's unfortunately going to happen to a lot of teams. And I feel like just holding that number 1 offense last year in Miami to 20 points, with that was the last 3 coming in the very final seconds of regulation, it's something to really look forward to, seeing it coming out of this AFC South.
You know, I have been on the Jags bandwagon for the last 2 years. I thought that they were going to be contenders last year especially. I'm not doing it again this year. I'm not doing it again with the Jacksonville Jags, especially when they are in a division with the Colts and the Texans, two teams I think are just way better than them. I think, again, the Jags are going to be decent. They're going to win 8 games max, in my opinion.
All right, what do we got for 2?
We got to speed this up a little bit. Coming up at number 2, I have the Arizona Cardinals. I believe that Kyler Murray, when healthy, is close to a top 10 quarterback. Not quite there, maybe, but I'd say he's better than Trevor Lawrence, in my opinion. And Marvin Harrison Jr., I know he got one reception, 4 yards, all that, 1.4 fantasy points, I know. But just the fact that you have Michael Wilson, who was a very good standout receiver last year coming out of the 3rd round, and you have James Conner, who lit it up. You have Trey Benson, who's waiting in the wings for whenever he gets a moment. Trey McBride as well. You have some pieces on defense. I feel like this Arizona Cardinals team could be like a good 9-8 team, I'd say, personally.
Oh, yeah, I think it could definitely surprise you. What do we have for number 1, though?
All right, indubitably the biggest sleeper team that I've had, because all that I've heard all offseason is about how this team has no pass catchers, how this team has no one on offense outside of their quarterback, and how their head coach is a big question mark. I have the Los Angeles Chargers as the biggest sleeper team of the season.
I'm a big fan of Jim Harbaugh personally. I love the hire.
He has a 67% winning percentage, the second highest in NFL history behind John Madden.
He proved before that he's a great quarterback. I mean, a great head coach in the league, but I still am worried about the Chargers not having a legit number 1 receiver.
Yes.
But they, again, though, they're not in the toughest division. You have the Chiefs, but then you have the Raiders who aren't that good, and you have the Broncos who aren't that good. So I agree that the Chargers can finish with a relatively good record this year, especially under the head coaching of Jim Harbaugh.
Oh, yeah, I definitely agree. Plus, I mean, after the game, if you saw any of the NFL film stuff, you got to see Herbert actually smile after a game. This dude's smile.
Yeah, I mean, he has a great offensive line. He has 2 great tackles, Rashawn Slater, Joe Wallach, Zion Johnson up in the front, Corey Lindsley. It's building it like Michigan, a great offensive line, great running team. All they have to do is fill out the defense.
Exactly, and Jim knows exactly what he's doing with that team, and I can't wait to see what they do. Pretty good tier list. Anyway, thank you for tuning in to Sports Talk in the Burgh this week. I hope you enjoyed all of our takes, and we will tune into you next week.